He said, we got beat today. But he said, I can tell you right now, it won't ever happen again.
He was completely ready. He had a fire in him unlike any other coach. It's a fact that he had those 20 years in the vineyards, preparing himself, thinking that he was better than people realized. All of those frustrations made the great Lombardi possible.
Bringing home 5 NFL titles in 7 years, unheard of, hasn't happened before or since.
He was a tough football coach. He demanded excellence at every position.
To sacrifice, to be prepared, to be committed, to run with discipline.
He was just an emotional guy. He was a great speaker.
I didn't know that much about Lombardi, but I did know a lot about the Green Bay Packers, and they were the world champions, and that's what I wanted to be part of.
If you do it my way, we will win. And if you don't want to do it my way, we'll get somebody here that does.
This is a tough and it's a cruel business. And when we lose, we're gone. Therefore, we have to win. Therefore, you have to win. And we only want winners.
There's one person in charge, and it's Vince Lombardi.
Vince, who was general manager, coach, and everything else in Green Bay.
The whole point is he was in control of everything. Everything.
There were football coaches at the time that sold insurance and had real estate investments and other kinds of distractions. He was 100% football.
He made changes right away. He made changes administratively in the staff and in the building.
At a first-ever kickoff dinner in August, Lombardi introduces each player, all of whom wear suits and ties. Lombardi tells those on hand, "This is your team. It belongs to the city of Green Bay. Without you, we can do nothing."
He had us believe that in order to play well, you had to look well and act well and talk well, and that was all part of the game, being a professional in every phase of your life.
His character was highest, and he expected his players to have great character, too.
We played in County Stadium, and I picked it, I ran it back, and I scored. I slammed the ball to the ground and hit the ball, bounced into the stands. And I ran to the sideline. I'm just happy as hell. And Vince stopped me on the sideline and said, "Don't you ever do that again." I said, "What?" But I realized that was not his way.
He had certain standards, both physical and moral.
They had teen bars when you were 18 years old. And I went there because I wasn't 21. And so Lombardi says, he's having roll call. You know, George here, Czar here, Fleming. Oh, by the way, Fleming, stay out of the teen bars. The babysitters are seeing you. I said, well, I'm not old enough to go to the big places. So he says, stay home then.
We began to realize that the values we were accumulating that were not only good for our play on the field, but good for our lives.
I didn't want to embarrass the Green Bay Packers. I didn't want to embarrass the town of Green Bay or Vince Lombardi.
By striving for absolute perfection, you raise yourself notches above what you may have been content to be. And I think this is the law that he governs himself with.
We get down to about the 30-yard line. If we score, we win the game.
Only seconds go, no timeouts left, and Bart threw a little flare pass to Jim Taylor, who ran it down about to the 9-yard line. He was tackled by Chuck Bednarik of the Eagles. Bednarik wouldn't let him get up. Just kind of sat on him, let the clock tick down.
Victory goes to the Eagles, a team that has overcome insurmountable odds all season. The Philadelphia Eagles are truly a team of desire.
This is our first championship for a lot of guys, so it was a really difficult game to lose.
We all came in the locker room, and we all were disappointed.
Coach had been out doing interviews with the press, and he comes into the locker room about 10 minutes late, and he gets up on a trunk full of capes and stuff. "Bring it up! Everybody up! Bring it up!" We get up in front of the room, in the locker room.
He said, we got beat today. But he said, I can tell you right now, it won't ever happen again. He says this to us right after the ball game. It won't ever happen again. No one will ever beat us in a championship game again.
At that moment, I became a Lombardi fan.
Internally, it killed him. Every defeat was like a death for Vince Lombardi. And he'd just play over and over and over again in his mind every play that could have led to that defeat. That was part of his obsession.
The Packers clinch the Western Conference and secure the 1961 NFL championship game.
Cold weather, got the big city Giants coming here to play us, so big build up to that game.
The 61 championship, to this day, was the most eagerly anticipated game in the history of the Green Bay Packers. It was the first time they played host to the NFL championship game. And there's nothing bigger in the eyes of fans than a first.
The path to the championship had been anything but clear-cut. NFL players are called into service as the Berlin crisis rages on.
The whole team was having a good year. And we got called up in the middle of the season.
People that were in the National Guard, the Army Reserve, had to serve.
Paul Horning, Ray Nitschke, and myself.
I was in Fort Riley, Kansas, and they were letting all the football players in NFL, every one of us, got weekend passes to certain games we could go back and play.
Didn't always get passes to come home and play for games.
Here comes the championship game. Guy says, Paul, you can't go this weekend. General said, all leaves are out. Everybody stays home. I go, Coach? Yes, Paul. I won't be able to make it for the championship game. What? What the hell are you talking about? He said, I got Kennedy's number in my pocket. I'm going to call him when we hang up. He said, America deserves to have the best game that they can have in the championship game. And the Packers need Paul Horning to play to be a part of their team. I get the pass.
December 31st, 1961. Green Bay Packers versus the New York Giants. The Packers overwhelm the New York Giants 37-0 to win the franchise's 7th NFL championship. Its first in 17 seasons.
He had the dominant defense under Lombardi with Willie Davis and Wood, and then you had some zany, unconventional characters, but who were also great players, Ray Nitschke and Max and Horning. So it was a combination of factors all underneath Vince.
Lombardi brought back not only the pride in the state of Wisconsin, but the pride around the country.
Green Bay being such a small town and being able to have a championship team there just captivated the nation.
The Packers finished the season with a nearly flawless 13-1 record. Many consider the 1962 Packers the greatest team in franchise history.
Team played 21 games that year, including the preseason, won 20 of them.
The season culminates in a bitterly fought defensive battle in a just as bitterly cold Yankee Stadium.
Wind chill was pretty low. It was bitter cold and just hard-nosed football. And of course, Jim Taylor was a guy that the Giants were laying for.
Robustelli and Cat Cabbage and other different players that tried to tear my head off. You're trying in return to bring the contact to them.
The conditions of that day dictated a ground game. New York was more of a passing team, so I'm sure the conditions hurt them.
The Associated Press announces Packers' Jim Taylor as the NFL's MVP.
I got the ball, and I'm dropping down, and that sideline is right there. I'm not stepping out. I'm not stepping out. I'm taking on that New York Giant player.
The Packers prevail 16-7 over the New York Giants. A title rematch to win their second straight NFL championship under Vince Lombardi. (1965) NFL championship game. Green Bay sees 5 inches of wet, heavy snow. This snarls pregame traffic and the Cleveland Browns.
They got delayed because of the weather, and they never got here until a little bit an hour before the game, so already they didn't get off on the right foot.
They must scramble to make kickoff.
Cleveland had the great runner Jimmy Brown. When we would play the Browns, they would always gear themselves to stop Jim Brown.
in the sleet and the snow and the muck here at Lambeau Field, and that was to the advantage of Horning and Taylor, who were certainly not speed merchants, and to the disadvantage of Jim Brown, who was much faster.
With their distinctive, sure-footed styles, Packers' 30-year-old running backs Paul Horning and Jim Taylor sloshed through a quagmire for a combined 201 yards rushing.
That was Lombardi football. He just pounded the ball against the Browns that day.
The Packers defeat the Browns 23-12 and win the 1965 NFL Championship. Horning and Taylor, nicknamed Thunder and Lightning, had done it again.
It was just a couple of names that a couple of reporters thought up.
Taylor and Horning were a good tandem.
I never paid any attention to it, and I know Jimmy didn't either. He didn't care one way or the other.
Seconds remain in the championship game. The Dallas Cowboys face a 4th and goal at the Green Bay 2-yard line.
Dallas had the momentum. Was not looking good for us, and we had to stop them.
If I go and play it the way that Lombardi drew this play up, I'm going to stop the play. He's going to pull up, he's going to throw the pass again.
Dave Robinson charges Cowboy quarterback Don Meredith.
You can see the guard, he sees me, and he wheels around and tries to come back to get me, but it's too late.
Meredith takes the ball, rolls out to the right. He's going to be nailed. A pass away, and it's intercepted in the end zone.
On that last play, Dave Robinson was able to get in and get a hold of Meredith's arm.
And I grabbed him, and he had his arm out like this. I hit him from the left side, and I couldn't get his right arm. I'm trying to pull it down.
Meredith just flipped the ball because he's going down. And of course, Tom Brown standing there able to intercept and save the day for us.
The play preserves a 34-27 victory and the 1966 NFL Championship. This time, the Packers have another game to play.
The National Football League was the league, and they'd worked hard to establish their league. The newfangled AFL was a challenge to them. The AFL had signed a number of players off the NFL rosters, and it put the pinch on a lot of the NFL owners.
Competition between the AFL teams and the NFL teams had gotten to the point where we weren't sure that all the teams would survive.
Following 6 years of hostile relations, the upstart American Football League and the nearly 50-year-old National Football League agreed to a merger.
They want recognition. They want parity with the NFL. They win this game. Boy, that's a big feather in their hat. A lot of recognition. We're just as good as you are.
Coach Lombardi was tense.
Talk about tight as the nuts on a new bridge. He was really not himself. People were asking him questions about the Kansas City Chiefs and their credentialing and their personnel. Lombardi had the edge because he had honed his team with mental toughness.
We have to beat this team to solidify what the NFL stands for.
The stuff of legends.
Wasn't set to play. Wasn't ready to play, all of a sudden got called on.
Boy, Dollar gets hurt on like the first series, hurts his shoulder out for the game.
Lombardi yells about Max, and Max, he hadn't played all year, and he can't find his helmet. And my God, someone gave him the wrong helmet. Anyway, he put it on. Max McGee had the game of his life.
I'm thinking, oh my God, this man's been out all night on the eve of the biggest game in our career.
He catches 7 passes for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns from game MVP Bart Starr.
At halftime, we were ahead 14-10.
The first Super Bowl halftime show initiates today's tradition of spectacle. It features 2 men flying above the field propelled by rocket belts. While the show went smoothly, the return to the game did not.
They sent Pat Summerall down because Pat had played for Vince in New York. Said, you need to go down and tell Vince that you need to kick off again because NBC was a commercial. So he says, you got to be crazy. I'm not going to do that. They said, get somebody else. He said, well, you played for him. So he goes over and Lombardi says, you got to be kidding me. I'll file suit against the NFL for this. So he agreed, not very happily about it, but he did agree.
Green Bay dominates the second half. Safety Willie Wood's 50-yard interception return triggers the team's 21-point surge. The Packers make history by winning Super Bowl I, rolling to a 35-10 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. Pressed to compare the Chiefs with teams in the NFL, at a post-game press conference, Coach Lombardi blurts out the comment many of his NFL brethren want to hear. Kansas City has a real top team, but I don't think it compares with the top teams in the NFL. That's what you wanted me to say. Now I've said it. The Packers win the Central Division with a 9-4-1 record. However, they are perceived as tired and aging.
Being an old man inferred that you were not capable of doing the job, that you had passed your prime, that you were no longer a great football player, you were a has-been.
Underdogs for the first time in a home playoff game under Lombardi. A rematch, Packers versus the Los Angeles Rams in the NFL Western Conference Championship game.
The playoff game at County Stadium against the Rams. I remember Travis Williams having a huge game.
Travis Williams was our secret weapon in that game. He had all kinds of yards. They would try to close on him, and he could run in between them. He was just so fast.
The Packers faced the same adversary on the last day of 1967 as they did on the first. They beat the Dallas Cowboys on January 1st to earn their place in Super Bowl I. They must now face them again.
Lombardi was the guy that kept everything in check.
He would inspect the field. And then he had his anti-freeze situation there where he installed a whole bunch of wires under the stadium floor, the turf, to keep the field soft.
He loved gadgets. He just absolutely loved things that he felt gave him a competitive advantage. This system would keep the soil from freezing and therefore make it playable.
And so the night before the game, they turned it on.
That night, the weather changed. The weatherman made a terrible forecast.
December 31st, 1967.
Don Meredith said they had a wake-up call at the hotel, howdy doody, Packer. He said, what? He said, howdy doody, it's 7 o'clock in the morning and 16 below. And Meredith said, 16 below what?
Your breath and your breathing was just absolutely like a cake of ice.
Yesterday, Saturday, before that Sunday game, was a beautiful day in Green Bay. It was maybe 20, 30 degrees, but hot, but sunny and beautiful. We were running around like a bunch of colts out in the field.
Press box on the west side of Lambeau didn't have much heat in it at all, and I thought, wouldn't this be lovely? And the field was another story.
When they got to Lambeau Field, some of the Packer assistant coaches were down there.
The grass was nice and soft and warm until they took the tarp off. And then it hit 16 below weather and it quick froze.
Just see the white creeping across the field, the frozen tundra.
And someone said, you better go up and tell your boss the system's not working. And none of the assistant coaches would do it. They got Chuck Lane.
I'm like the young brother. He gave him all the crappy jobs. So I go into Lombardi and said, Coach, I said, we got a problem. What's that? I said, your field is frozen. He said, you're kidding me, it can't be. And I said, oh yeah, it is, unfortunately. I thought you needed to know. Well, he just flew off the handle at that one.
People start filing into the locker room, and there's a lot of grumbling going on.
Yeah, I think it's great. You like it? No.
Coach heard that too. He said, we're playing this game. So get out there, get warmed up, and let's go. Getting warmed up was impossible.
Vince would let guys wear gloves, and Dave Robinson said, I'm going to wear a brown glove, and he won't know the difference. And my God, he did.
By the time the game started, it was an ice rink. All the mud, too, had coagulated on the field, froze to the field. It was almost as if you had a stucco wall and you laid it down and then you had to play on that.
The upper level was where the cameras were, so there couldn't be glass in front of the cameras. So for the entire game, we were literally outside.
Every time a guy opened that damn door, it was like the Arctic Circle. Coffee froze on the ledge. Guys wiping the windows with keeps the breath so you could see out the window. It was terrible conditions.
The first play of the game was almost a disaster. Donnie Anderson fumbled. You know, it was like
trying to hold an ice cube. The referee blew the whistle. He tried to pull the whistle, which was a metal whistle. It stuck to his lip, and he had to rip it out of his mouth. It cracked his lip, and the blood froze. And from that moment on, there was never another whistle in the ice bowl. We played the entire ice bowl listening to the commands of the referees saying stop.
Packers scored early.
Terrible running conditions.
Field was getting worse and worse and worse. And the weather was really the number one thing that the Packers were fighting at that time, as were the Cowboys.
The Cowboys take a lead late in the game. They're winning this damn game at Green Bay, of all places.
Final drive in the Ice Bowl, we're down 3. We get the ball on the 35-yard line, 4.5 minutes to go. In the previous 31 plays, we'd gained a -9 yards. 31 plays, the whole second half, maybe some more, we gained -9 yards.
We hadn't made a first down in the whole second half.
Watch the momentum change. Green Bay just came back and started to dominate play.
In that huddle, I looked in my eyes of my teammates. I saw confidence. I saw poise and professionalism. I didn't see any fear, anxiety.
I talked to Bart later, and I said, "What made you think you could take that team down the field? What were you thinking about?" He said, "I came in the huddle, and I was going to say something, and I looked in your eyes, and I looked in Forrest's eyes, I looked in Ski's eyes, looked in Gilly's eyes. I said, I don't need to say anything."
And then Bart stepped in and said, "Let's get this done."
And everybody got an injection of power, of energy.
The greatest drive I've ever seen in football was that drive. 68 yards.
Donnie caught a little pass to begin the drive. I got a 7-yard run off right tackle for first down.
Donnie Anderson was sensational. Chuck Mercine played his heart out.
I told Bart Starr that I was open in the left flat. He hit me for a 19-yard catch and went out of bounds, stopped the clock. All of a sudden, I've got half the yardage in the drive.
We need to get this ball in the end zone. I don't think that there was any doubt in anybody's mind that we had to, or otherwise it was over for us.
Bart says to Ski in the huddle, he says, "Ski, can you block Andre on the give play?" And Ski says, "Run it on 2." And we gained 11 yards down to the 1-yard line.
They call a couple of dive plays to our halfback, to Donnie Anderson, number 44. Both times, Donnie slipped.
So at the final timeout with 16 seconds to go, Bart went to the sidelines.
I said, "Coach, I'm up underneath the center. I can lunge my way into the end zone." All he said was, "Then run it, and let's get the hell out of here."
It wasn't a sneak. He didn't call a sneak. He called a handoff.
The play was Brown right 31 wedge, which Chuck Mercine was supposed to get the ball.
I was excited because here I was going to get a chance to win the game.
An unbearable -13 degrees with a 36 below, 0 wind chill. Bart Starr finishes a 12-play, 68-yard drive with a 1-yard touchdown quarterback sneak. The winning touchdown with 13 seconds remaining.
He kept the ball.
He didn't tell me, he didn't tell anybody he was going to keep the ball.
I turned around and I saw Bart tumble into the end zone, and he was across the line, right? And whew, we got it.
My next fear was don't push him into the end zone because I couldn't stop. And if I pushed him or assisted him into the end zone, it would have been a penalty. So that's why I threw my arms up in the air, trying to say to the referee, I'm not assisting him as I bumped him.
The Packers beat the Cowboys 21-17 in what is now famously remembered as the Ice Bowl.
Coach Lombardi was meeting with the team, and he really got after that team that day. He laid it out. He had a horrible anger, a temper. He could be charming.
I'm going to use the 4-pass for this thing.
He had all these facets that were all combined into what the real man was, and it was everything. I was sitting in this room adjacent to that at a little table there having lunch. He came in, and he didn't see me. He put his head down on the desk and cried. He was pushing that team
to Super Bowl II. He wanted it for them.
The Packers beat the Oakland Raiders 33-14 in Super Bowl II at the Orange Bowl in Miami.
That game, the second Super Bowl, is almost a footnote compared to what the Ice Bowl is in history.
I know I had this feeling right from the first series of plays that we were on the field, that we were out there ready to play the game.
Coach had mentioned this might be our last time together. That would be the appropriate way for him to leave the game on the shoulders of his men. And he looks down and he says, let's head for the locker room, boys. It's a moment I'll cherish as long as I live.
I love my father very dearly, but I don't think about my father every day, but I think about Coach Lombardi every day.